And welcome back. This is ballerscuba with the final bonus episode of Let's Play Darkest Dungeon. I have done quite a bit of work off screen, and then I cheated at the end anyway, because even while cheating, while trying to get things kind of somewhat normally, it was taking me way too long. So, as you can see, it's still week 158. You can tell because all the same characters are still doing the same things. What I have been doing is I've been turning on cheats that give me like one hit kill, no damage to me, no stress to me, all that kind of stuff, and going through the farmstead. I also got the achievement for 300 kills, figuring that maybe if I kept going, they would give me more memories. That is not the case. They kind of stop after a while. All right, so let me explain the Endless Harvest a little bit more now that I have a better understanding of it. Basically, the Endless Harvest is the only way to get memories, and there are only two enemies that can drop them. I have not seen one from the Thing from the Stars, right? This thing right here. The Thing from the Stars, you can try to find him in one of those 4 dungeons. Maybe you'll find him, but he will show up in the Endless Harvest. He can drop them. I have not seen that happen, though. Every single memory that I have gotten came from the Sleeper, basically the comet that fell. You kill that, you get a memory every time that I did it, and that's it. You have to go through the Miller every time. Then you go through the Sleeper every time. I believe that's the 3rd or 4th run that you'll get through both of those. After you do that, then there will be a boss at the end of, I believe, every other level. It could be every level, though, but I think it's every other level. And it's a random wandering boss, with the exception of the Fanatic, who is exclusive to Crimson Court. So if you did not get a chance to fight him then you're out of luck. He's not going to be in the farmstead. Everything else that roams around will be there. I even fought one of the Drowned crew. I don't remember if it was specifically the Drowned crew, but the fighting pirates. Yeah, I fought them one time too. I made it through 7 Endless Harvest runs before I ended up just finding a save game editor and gave myself all the blueprints that I needed. I got 7 of them. That was good enough for me. So let's take a look at what I can build with this. This is the last thing that I need to build. It is the mill. Heroes will no longer suffer random hunger checks. Memories can be found in the Endless Harvest quest and from the Thing from the Stars, I am told. But I haven't seen that happen, and I killed him, I believe, 4 times, and he never dropped it. But I'm told you can get it from him. I wouldn't count on it, though. Go for the Sleeper. It's the only guaranteed drop. All right, let's construct the mill. There it is. It doesn't look particularly special. It looks like a mill. So that is all the things that I have done in the game. That's everything for the Color of Madness. The Geologic Study Hall has been built. I can now stack gems a little bit more. Tainted Well gives me better buffs for some of the items. The Miasmal Orchard, sure. That gives me a little bit more buffs on the items as well. And then all this stuff we have seen before. Once again, the Red Hook does nothing. It's the name of the company, so there's not much going on there. So, yeah, it's kind of a short episode, so I'm just going to talk about my overall impressions of the game. I feel like this game, I feel like I always start on negative notes and then I get better, so if you like the game, I'll get to the good stuff later. But for now, the game's impression to me is that it's too repetitive. It felt like I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. I feel like it's a translation of the Dungeons and Dragons battle system in too narrow of a sense. All these characters could basically do 4 things, right? We could do 4 of these, 7 things at a time? So your character had an option of 4 things to do once you brought him into the quest. Dungeons and Dragons, I feel the beauty of it is that you can do anything you want. To narrow it down to just 4 choices per individual feels like an oversimplification to try to get things streamlined a little bit more. But with that said, everything still took a long time. It took a long time to get through it. There's definitely the stress mechanic that's new, or at least something that I have not seen before, and that's an interesting mechanic. I do enjoy something that is different, but at the end of the day, I felt like I could pretty much ignore it until I made it to the Endless Harvest. I felt that there were some strategies that would work, but there were definitely better characters than other characters. The Houndmaster comes to mind as a really good character. The ability to make everything bleed is quite nice. People were talking about like the stress thing. I'm not a big fan of that. The guard and the dodge and all that, and the healing of self. But really for me, these two right here, make things bleed, is what made the Houndmaster so good for me. Of course, the shield breaker, probably why it was DLC. Oh, I got a unique quirk. Yeah, this prismatic stability, got it from doing the Endless Harvest quests. But yeah, this Impale, probably the best move that I had. As you can see, it's not necessarily the strongest move, but it made everything blight. And that was vital at the end, I felt. As the game went on, I stopped relying on pure damage and started going for the damage over time, the blight and the bleed, because things were dodging more, things were protected more, and they had more HP, so I wanted to eat away at it slowly, and eventually I ended up finding a party that could do that for me, which was Shieldbreaker, Highwayman, Vestal, and Houndmaster. And that ended up being the party that was my go-to. Look at something like the Leper. A lot of people really like the Leper. I'm not a huge fan of it because, well, mostly because there was no bleed, no blight, stuff like that. So I didn't end up going for it, but a lot of people say this is the best character. But it's limited. It's very limited. So I wasn't a fan of it. Then you look at something like the Bounty Hunter. This is considered one of the worst classes out there, mostly because it relies on marks, it relies on stuns, and stuff like that. So it's not the best. I'm trying to think of like a worse character, and the Antiquarian like instantly comes to mind. I am not a fan of the Antiquarian. Doesn't do a lot of damage with this Nervous Stab. Everything else, I mean, it does blight, which is nice. It does a little bit of damage, but ultimately this is a character that isn't particularly good as a healer, isn't particularly good as an attacker, isn't particularly good as a blighter. So it wasn't my favorite character. It had its uses and I could work with it, but I felt like I was missing out on other characters because I would bring them along. There were characters that were kind of built certain ways and they didn't match up to what was in front of them. For instance, the Flagellant. Good character, right? You can do a lot of bleeding with the Flagellant. You can even heal yourself, but I wouldn't recommend it because of the bleed that comes along with that. But ultimately, if you're going for bleed, I would recommend the Houndmaster. The Houndmaster was just kind of better for that. When it came to a healer, I felt like I always needed a healer with me, and there was only one good healer, and that was the Vestal. The other character that could heal, I don't know if I have one to show it off anymore. Nope, I don't. I can't even remember the name of it. Are you here? There we go, the Occultist. The Occultist was probably the next best healer, and it had a range of like 0 to 20 something on the heals, and then there was a chance that it would bleed. So like when it came to healing, there was one healer. So I ended up needing a lot of Vestals as I continued on. So they became kind of a prized possession for me to get these healers so I can make it further along. People told me that it was more about protect and more about dodge, just kind of prevent damage instead of healing it all the time. But I felt like the game was too random for that most of the time. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good game. I just think that there's some balance issues along with it, and it does get way too repetitive. Think about all the work that I've done. I got all of these up to level 7. We defeated 3 or 4 bosses in each level. Then we did the darkest dungeon. Then, of course, there was the courtyard and the farmstead, but those were DLCs. I feel like for what it was, which was just dungeon crawling and hoping that your characters survive, it just kind of went on too long. For a game that I played, I believe, over 60 hours, if I hadn't cheated, it would have taken me 80 to 100 hours to get everything done. For a game that's that long, I need a story to push me forward. And this game, although it did have something of a story, I felt like it was more of a mood piece. It was just more of this kind of scary, creepy feeling, but not necessarily a scary story. It was just kind of, this is something bad that's going on, go kill it. And nothing really gets resolved at the end of it, right? We're at the end, and outside of my buildings looking a little bit better, there's nothing better about, my mansion at the top. There's nothing solved about the Crimson Court. There's nothing solved about the comet that I defeated. There's not really anything solved by doing the darkest dungeon. Nothing really progressed as a result of my actions, other than they allowed me to level up my characters and fight stronger monsters. The narrator I thought was really good when we started, but at the end I started getting annoyed by him because he ate up time and he didn't have anything new to say. If you do a crit, I think he only has like 10 things to say. So for me to play 50 hours getting crits and him talking, the same line started getting to me after a while. So yeah, it's a game that I think is good to pass the time, but I wouldn't really recommend it for something that you sit down and go out of your way to play. If you have like 30 minutes to an hour to just kind of sit down and do a run of the game, then it can be fun. But if it's something that you want to try to accomplish, or you want to get through, or you want to have some sort of feeling of completion, this is not the game for you. And then I do have to mention the graphics. I feel like the graphics are highly stylized in a way that I do enjoy, definitely. With that said, it seems to have caused an issue with the loading, because it's the only thing that I can figure out is causing these long loading screens. I feel like for what the game is, there's no reason that I should be stuck on a loading screen for 30 seconds before I can get into a 20-room dungeon. You know what I mean? In this day and age, on the computer that I'm playing, it just doesn't make any sense for that to keep happening. But yeah, when it comes to the battle system, I feel like it was too reliant on percentages. You can see them here. Like this stuff is plus skill chance. It increases your chance to inflict stun on somebody. This one increases your chance to inflict bleed on somebody. And even at the highest levels, let's see here. Let's sort by rarity, put the highest stuff up top. Even at the highest levels, we're pretty much talking somewhere in the range of 15 to 25% good for you in terms of inflicting this on others, and up to, I believe, 50% of resisting things. But most of the time it's like 40. And that is good, but at the end of the day, it's still relying a lot on risk and what happens when you roll the dice. Like I said earlier, if the game decided that all 4 of my enemies got to go first, and they all went after one character, that character dies. There's a really good chance that that happens, and there's nothing that I can do about it. That was always a possibility, and I feel at that point it's reliant too much on random chance. That is a part of Dungeons and Dragons, definitely, but in this game, because I was fighting so much, I was going through so much, I felt like it was always apparent that it wasn't necessarily skill that was pushing me forward, it was luck and determination. And I had a little bit of both throughout this run, and that's why I was able to get as far as I did. And then, of course, I cheated when I didn't want to do the grinding anymore to get all of these buildings. Let's face it, almost all my grinding was trying to get these buildings. Getting the characters and all that I did throughout the game, but to get these buildings set up, which are, once again, minor benefits, took a lot of work. So much so that I wasn't willing to go through it. Like I said, it probably would have taken me anywhere from 20 to 40 hours just to build these buildings. So, like I said, not something that I would recommend if you're actively playing it, but if you're passively playing it, you know, sitting down, doing a run when you have time, it's fun. I think that it's something that I'm glad that I played, but I would not sit down and play it again. I think there is something to be said about dedicating this much time to something, and for me personally, I need a story to push me forward in this game. It's based on Lovecraft, and I'm not a big fan of Lovecraft in terms of his writing. I do like the worlds that he sets up, the mythos that he sets up, but in terms of his actual writing, it leaves something to be desired for me, which is description and resolution and progression. It's much more of a mood piece. It's more of a, it's horrible feeling throughout the whole thing, and that's about it. So that's my thoughts on the Darkest Dungeon. Not, you know, the best thoughts, but they are mine. I hope you guys have enjoyed this entire series. It went on way longer than I thought it was going to. The game just kept going. For what it was, I felt too long, like I said. But I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you stuck it out the entire way, I thank you for that. This is one of the last ones that I'll be doing before the eventual channel relaunch that I have talked about many, many times before. If you are unaware, there are several update videos about that. So I'm happy to get this done, and it's on to something completely different pretty soon. I hope you guys have enjoyed this Let's Play. I hope you laughed. Hope you learned. Hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.